ask all of the officers of Community Network to come up to the podium as we recognize the 2011 Trailblazers. And as you can see them listed here, we have two of them that are no longer with us, and those are posthumous awards. And I must also tell you that we received over 40 nominations in the space of about a week or a week and a half. But many of the people who were nominated retired a long, long time ago. So all we were working with was a name in most cases, or a very brief bio. So some people we were unable to contact. I'd like to start with Mr. Charles Washington because he was nominated by Mr. Ed Mack, who many of you know, a retiree, and also an honoree last year. Mr. Charles Washington, we just found out, has recently passed away, but he was SNET's first African-American installer. And he went on to become, over the years, it took some time, but he became a manager. And so he became the first manager for repair and installation. He hailed from the Bridgeport, Connecticut area, and Mr. Matt, who nominated him, shared with me this anecdotal story, and I made that part of his bio, so Tanya included that in his bio here. Okay, and so he joined the company in October of 1963. And one day he was up on the pole working, and it's there in your program, some concerned citizen saw him and he looked out of place to her. And she promptly contacted the local police department. And they came and he had to come down and explain what he was doing up on the pole, working in a SNET truck, and I'm sure they must have used SNET, had uniforms or ID badges or something, but he was able to rise above that fray, and I'm sure that type of concern back in that day, and he stuck with it, and he persevered, and he became the first African-American manager in installation here in Connecticut. So let's give him a hand. We had difficulty reaching his relatives, so I don't believe we have a family representative here, but those of you who are familiar with people from way back in SNET, if you know any family member or you have any idea how we might contact his family, please let us know. Also known as Gilbert Hampton. And the young lady, give him a hand, please stand. Please come on up. The young lady who nominated him was unable to be here today, and I know you must be curious, and her name is Daphne Cobb. And she started out in the company, she's still an active employee, but I believe she started out as an operator. Because when I joined the company as an operator, everybody used to tell me how I reminded them of Daphne. And I said, oh, I know Daphne. I said, oh, that is a compliment to the utmost degree. And Daphne is now a manager here in this.
I've been retired now for 5 years. And I've got to say, SNET was my family. They were folks that you genuinely could count on. There was a lot of accountability. I worked with Carl Jones in engineering. As a matter of fact, we were one of the first two black engineers.
Okay.
I've managed, I've got to say, in 2000, as you can read my bio, had a couple of successes where I was chosen to handle a couple of projects, and they were very successful. was working, I finally got out of engineering and went up to an operations job in Hartford. And I got summoned by Barbara Gaddison, and I didn't know who Barbara was. And I lived up in the Hartford area. I had been working in the Baden all my life for 20 years. And Barbara Gaddison said, I'd like you to come down and interview for a job. And I said, geez, I just got here a year and a half ago, traveling 30 miles every day. You know, I was finally at home. Well, my district manager at the time says, you really need to go down and talk to Barbara Gaddison. And I went down and talked to Barbara, and I said, I'm not taking no job. I just, you know, I'm here, I'm retiring from here. Well, Barbara had other things on her mind, and what she was looking for was an engineer that could design, launch, manage, and handle a long-distance network. It was quite a challenging opportunity. Didn't know what I was getting to, but when I knew I was going to be competing with the top 3 carriers, MCI at the time, AT&T, and Sprint, I took that under my belt, and her being a black female woman, very intelligent woman, I accepted the job. One of the things that I was very uncomfortable with was when she told me, I got to tell you one thing before you leave, is that when you leave that job, I can't guarantee you that you'll have a job if we're not successful. I said, that's pretty serious. And, you know, back in the day, there was the regulated side of the business and there was the deregulated side of the business. And this would be considered deregulated because it was a venture that we did not have privileged information. We were treated like a carrier, siloed, if you will. Well, we went in and we designed a network. I think one of the better networks. And we were very successful. We launched in August of 1993, and Daphne was a part of that as well on the customer service side. And from there, Barbara was successful, I was successful. I moved right along with the acquisition of SBC and had to pick up this network and move it. And if it were not the old people of S&T, I mean, that would have been unmanageable to do. It was monumental. We became the #1 residential carrier in Connecticut. And as a matter of fact, we chased AT&T and MCI out.
We only want to read it one time, so I want to read it for everyone. It states, Community Network African American Telecommunications Professionals of AT&T, Connecticut Chapter. Would like to honor you for the service, dedication, and the selfless commitment that you have consistently given. The trails that you have blazed have served as a blueprint for others to follow. It is with great pleasure that we bestow upon you our first recipient, the African American Trailblazer Award. We thank you for all that you have done and only hope that we can live up to the legacy that you have so graciously.
And was able to bring his family, his wife, and so thank you. And Lisa, who is the chairperson of this committee, and Fred would like to present you with your plaque. So Lisa, if you would join
Not
us.
surprised when I did get the call for Sharon, but I was very happy when I got the call for Sharon. But it is an honor to stand before you today. I worked for the company for about almost 41 years. And you can't do anything for 41 years without the support of friends and family. So this time I'd like to introduce my mother-in-law, Mrs. Ellen Angel, and my wife, Mrs. Barbara Jones. Both my son and daughter are tied up and couldn't get away on such short notice, but I'm sure we'll get on our thoughts today. When I talked to some folks about this, they said you need to have a funny story or an anecdote about what has been going on over the last 40 years. I have many short stories and many anecdotes, but I cannot share them with you. Not some of us not for public consumption. But one thing I do remember is earlier on when I became a supervisor, my supervisor said to me, always treat the people that you work with and for with respect and courtesy. Because one day they may be your boss. And then my mind lies to about 35 years ago, when we had another project at SNET called Canvas. And in those days, the folks at Bell Labs used to have to go where they were to data test all these things before you brought them back to market. And I had the opportunity to go to Worthington, Ohio. I remember it clearly because it was tornado season. But you know, about 20 of us got together to do this training and beta testing, and I was fortunate enough to be on a team with a young lady from the Midwest. I was fortunate in all aspects of that because this young lady happened to be black and she happened to be a civil engineer. Very rare in our company at the time. Well, being only a couple of African Americans there, we kind of got together. And as you know, on any Bell Labs project, you must prepare a case. You cannot go home until you do a case. So we worked diligently for about 4 days, and early Friday morning, graduation time, our case was complete. It was excellent. We got the top award that day for having our case. So then I fast forward 35 years hence. And of course, SBC, SVT, ATT, all these, every year we have a different name and a different group to report to. So during the last part of my tenure, I was reporting to a person unknown in Chicago, Illinois. So this person who was an assistant vice president and senior engineer at the time decided to come to Connecticut and meet her team. Well, about 40 of us were in the room. This lady walked in and said, "I know you." And I said, "Yeah, I know you too." The team was the same person who I met some 35 years before in training. Well, you know, we had a typical luncheon in QA, and near the end of the QA, I asked a question. I said, "Is there an offer on the table?" And she said, "No, there are no offers, and, you know, we're safe, nobody's gonna get laid off." I said, "No, I'm just thinking about, you know." She said, "No, there's no offers." So about 2 days later, she called me one evening at home and said, "Are you serious about, you know, leaving?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "I'll call you tomorrow." So true to her word, she called around 9:30 the next morning. It was a Wednesday, and I was at my desk, and she said, "Can we talk?" I said, "Sure." She said, "Are you seriously interested in leaving the business?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, when do you think you'll be leaving?" I said, "I can get here about 2 o'clock today." I really. She said, "Well, be serious, when can you leave?" I said, "Well, you know, we'll pick a date." So she said, "When's your birthday?" I said, "November 3rd. She said, "Well, sometime at the end of the month, pick a date and we'll make that your end date." I said, "Okay, November 20th. She said, "Fine." Now, my supervision had no idea what was going on, so she called me. She said, "Listen, from now on, you're on a special project for me." And she sent me some information. I said, "To get 5 more your loose ends and, you know, come to work for me." I said, "Fine." So the time passed. My supervisor was not a happy camper because, you know, I was leaving, and rumor was that I had some special deal or something. I don't know. In any event, I was able to leave with a very, very nice package. And it goes to show when people tell you to treat people with respect and courtesy because they may be your boss, there's a lot of truth in that accent. So treat each other with respect. Thank you very much for this reward. I do appreciate it. And God bless you all.
We'd like to make a surprise presentation to you.
There it goes.
Daughter ruler Betty Joyner Cook is here from Pocahontas Temple, number 55 in New Haven. Please give her a hand. She's also a longtime SNET, SBC, AT&T active employee. So, Miss Betty, here's the mic.
Mr. Jones, Brother Jones, on behalf of the exalted ruler who could not be here today because of his obligation down at the lodge, his meeting, they send you this love token. You can go to wherever you want to go, but I advise you to take it home. On, what was that, Wednesday, Thursday, I saw? He says, "Daughter ruler, come here." I said, "What, Carl?" He said, "What is this?" I said, "Oh, Trailblazer. Yeah, Daughter Love's gonna be there also, and you should come." He says, "What is it about?" I said, "Carl, just come." So anyway, he's here, his wife, his mother-in-law, and I'm happy, and here's a love token for you.
Thank you, Big Dog Miller. I'm sure the brothers who are enjoying this treat have a nice afternoon.